The notification sound cut through the silence of my garage like a knife. I wiped grease off my hands with an old rag, glancing at my phone. Halloween night, 11:30 p.m., and my wife Alicia was texting me from God knows where. I'm pregnant, and the baby isn't yours. I stared at the screen for a full minute, letting the words sink in. 20 years of marriage, and this is how she tells me? Not face to face, not even a phone call. A text message while I'm fixing the transmission on my beat-up Ford. My fingers moved across the screen with surprising calm. Congratulations to the real dad. Then I blocked her number. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I scrolled through my contacts until I found him. Dominic Russo, my former best friend, my wife's Pilates student, and apparently the father of her unborn child. The same guy who'd been coming to our barbecues for 5 years, drinking my beer and slapping my back while screwing my wife behind my back. Welcome to Parenthood, Dom. Hope you're ready for 18 years of child support. Jake. I hit send and tossed the phone onto my workbench. The garage felt different now, like the air itself had changed. 20 years of building a life with someone, and it all comes crashing down in a text message. My name is Jake Morrison, and I'm a 40-year-old logistics manager for a shipping company in Millbrook, Ohio. Nothing special about me. Average height, brown hair going gray at the temples, hands that know their way around an engine. I met Alicia in college, married her right after graduation, and thought we'd grow old together. Shows how much I knew. The phone started buzzing. Different numbers, but I knew it was her, probably using her sister's phone, then her mother's, then whoever else she could find. I let them all go to voicemail. An hour later, I was still under the hood when I heard a car screech into the driveway. Alicia's white BMW, the one I'd been making payments on for 3 years. She burst through the garage door like a hurricane, still wearing her Halloween costume from whatever party she'd been at. A skin-tight black catsuit that left nothing to the imagination. Jake, what the hell is wrong with you? Her voice was shrill, panicked. You can't just send messages like that. I didn't look up from the engine. Like what? Congratulating the father of your baby? It's not, I didn't mean... She was stumbling over her words, which was unusual for Alicia. She was a Pilates instructor, used to being in control, commanding rooms full of suburban housewives. I was confused, okay? I made a mistake. Which part was the mistake? I finally turned to face her. Getting pregnant or telling me it wasn't mine? Her face flushed red. Even at 38, she was stunning. The kind of woman who turned heads at the grocery store. But right now she looked desperate. I panicked, she said. I took one of those home pregnancy tests and I don't know what came over me. I haven't been thinking straight lately. So you are pregnant? She hesitated. Maybe. I don't know. The test was unclear. But you were sure enough about who the father was. The color drained from her face. Jake, please, let's just forget this happened. I'll take another test. We'll figure this out like adults. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like adults? Adults don't cheat on their spouses, Alicia. Adults don't send text messages telling their husband of 20 years that they're carrying another man's baby. I never said I was cheating. You didn't have to. I wiped my hands on the rag again, taking my time. How long has it been going on with Dom? She opened her mouth, then closed it. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. That's what I thought, I said. My phone buzzed on the workbench. Alicia lunged for it, but I was faster. It was a text from Dominic. What the hell, Jake? What are you talking about? I showed her the screen. Looks like your boyfriend got my message. He's not my boyfriend. But her voice cracked when she said it. Then why did you tell me he was the father of your baby? She couldn't answer that one. The next message came from Dominic's wife, Susan. Jake, what's going on? Dom is freaking out. Susan Martinez, or Susie as everyone called her, had been Alicia's best friend since high school. They did everything together. Yoga classes, wine nights, weekend trips to Columbus for shopping. If Alicia was cheating with Dom, Susie had to know about it. My phone kept buzzing. More messages, more calls. Word was spreading fast in our small town. You need to fix this, Alicia said, her voice desperate now. Call them back. Tell them it was a joke or something. A joke? I set the phone down and really looked at her. Our marriage ending is a joke to you? Our marriage isn't ending. I made a mistake. I admitted it. Can't we just move past this? Like we moved past you staying late at the studio 3 nights a week? Like we moved past those mysterious phone calls you take in the other room? Like we moved past you suddenly needing new lingerie that I never get to see? Each question hit her like a physical blow. She wrapped her arms around herself, the catsuit suddenly looking more like armor than seduction. I want you out, I said quietly. What? Pack a bag. Stay at your sister's, stay at a hotel, I don't care. But I want you out of my house tonight. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. She stared at me for a long moment, tears starting to form in her eyes. Jake, please. We can work through this. Couples therapy, whatever you want. Just don't throw away 20 years over one stupid mistake. One mistake? I laughed again. Alicia, you told me you were pregnant with another man's baby. That's not a mistake. That's a confession. The tears were flowing freely now, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I'll give you an hour, I said, turning back to the engine. After that, I'm changing the locks. I heard her sob, heard her heels clicking across the concrete floor, heard the door slam behind her. But I didn't look up. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was from my daughter Madison, away at Ohio State. Dad, what's going on? Mom called me crying about some fight you guys had. I typed back, ask your mother. Then I turned the phone off completely. The garage felt peaceful again. Just me and the Ford and the smell of motor oil. But I knew this was just the beginning. In a town like Millbrook, news traveled faster than wildfire. And by morning, everyone would know that Jake Morrison's wife had cheated on him. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I woke up on the couch at 6 a.m. to the sound of someone pounding on my front door. Through the window, I could see Dominic Russo's red Mustang in my driveway, the one he was always bragging about at neighborhood barbecues. The pounding continued. Jake, open up. We need to talk. I took my time getting to the door, stopping to make coffee first. Let him wait. When I finally opened it, Dom was standing there in his work clothes, coveralls from Martinez Auto Shop, where he worked as a mechanic. His face was flushed, angry. What the hell was that text about? He demanded, pushing past me into the house. Good morning to you too, Dom. I closed the door and followed him into the living room. Coffee? I don't want coffee. I want answers. Susan's been crying all night asking me what I did. The whole neighborhood is talking. I sat down in my recliner, cradling my coffee mug. Maybe you should ask my wife about that. I did ask her. She said you've lost your mind, that you're accusing her of cheating with me. I'm not accusing her of anything. She told me herself. Dom's face went pale. She told you what? That she's pregnant and you're the father. Her words, not mine. He sank onto the couch like his legs had given out. That's impossible. Is it? The silence stretched between us. Dom was a big guy, 6'2", probably 220, with the kind of muscles that came from working with his hands all day. But right now he looked like a scared kid. Jake, he said finally, I swear to you, nothing happened between me and Alicia. Then why would she say you're the father of her baby? I don't know. Maybe she's having some kind of breakdown. Maybe you're lying. His face hardened. I've been your friend for 8 years. Friends don't screw each other's wives. Dom stood up abruptly. I'm not listening to this. You're paranoid, you know that? Just because your marriage is falling apart doesn't mean you can blame me for it. My marriage is falling apart because my wife is carrying your baby. She's not carrying my baby, he was shouting now. I don't know what game she's playing, but leave me out of it. He stormed toward the door, then turned back. And stay away from Susan. She's upset enough without you filling her head with crazy ideas. After he left, I sat in the quiet house thinking. Either Dom was the world's best actor, or he was telling the truth. But if he wasn't the father, why would Alicia say he was? My phone buzzed. I'd turned it back on to check messages from work, and now I was regretting it. 17 missed calls, 34 text messages, the whole town was buzzing. One message stood out from my neighbor Carol. Jake, I saw Alicia leave with a suitcase last night. Are you okay? Call me if you need anything. Another from my brother in Cincinnati. Madison called, said you and Alicia are having problems. Want to talk? And one from my boss. Take the day off if you need to. We can handle things here. I was scrolling through the messages when the doorbell rang. This time it was Susan Martinez. Susie, looking like she hadn't slept all night. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wasn't wearing makeup. Jake, we need to talk. I let her in, noticing how she kept glancing around like she was looking for something. Where's Alicia? She asked. I told her to leave. She's probably at her sister's. Susie nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. She was a small woman, maybe 5'4", with the kind of nervous energy that made her seem like she was always in motion. Today, she looked fragile. Dom came home last night ranting about some text you sent him, she said. He swears nothing happened between him and Alicia. What do you think? She was quiet for a long moment. I think my husband has been acting strange lately. Working late, taking phone calls in the garage, being secretive about his schedule. How long? A few months, maybe since summer. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. Jake, I'm scared. What if it's true? What if I've been living a lie? I poured her a cup of coffee and sat down across from her at the kitchen table. What did Alicia tell you? Nothing. That's what's so weird about this. She calls me about everything, what to wear, what to cook for dinner, whether she should get highlights. But lately she's been distant, canceling our girls' nights, making excuses not to hang out. When did that start? Right around the time Dom started acting weird. She took a sip of coffee with shaking hands. Oh God, Jake. What if they planned this? What if they've been laughing at us behind our backs? The thought had occurred to me too. Dom and Susie had been married for 10 years, no kids. He was always complaining about wanting to start a family. But Susie had fertility issues. If he got Alicia pregnant? There's something else, Susie said quietly. Last week, I found a receipt in Dom's wallet for a hotel room in Columbus. When I asked him about it, he said it was for a work conference, but I called his boss. There was no conference. The pieces were starting to fit together. Columbus was an hour away, far enough that they wouldn't run into anyone they knew, close enough for afternoon meetings. I'm sorry, Susie. She wiped her eyes. What are we going to do? I don't know about you, but I'm going to find out the truth. After Susie left, I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone. I had two choices. I could try to salvage my marriage, pretend this never happened, go to counseling and work through our problems like civilized adults. Or I could destroy the people who had destroyed my life. The decision was easier than it should have been. I started with social media. Alicia was addicted to Instagram, posting pictures of her yoga poses, her healthy meals, her perfect life. Her latest post was from last night's Halloween party, a group shot of her and several friends, including Dom and Susie. The caption read, "Best friends forever. Hashtag Halloween, hashtag blessed, hashtag grateful." The comments were already starting. Where's Jake? Everything okay at home? You look amazing. I screenshotted the photo and started making a list of everyone I recognized. These were the people who would be talking about us, speculating about what happened, choosing sides. It was time to give them something to really talk about. By Monday morning, the whole town knew. I could tell by the way conversations stopped when I walked into Murphy's diner for breakfast, by the pitying looks from the waitress, by the way old Pete Murphy himself came over to refill my coffee cup 3 times. Rough weekend, Jake? Pete asked, his weathered face creased with concern. You could say that. Want to talk about it? Not particularly. He nodded and moved on. Pete had been running this diner for 30 years. He knew when to push and when to back off. I was finishing my eggs when Tommy Brennan slid into the booth across from me. Tommy owned the hardware store and had been part of our poker group for years. Me, him, Dom, and 2 other guys from the neighborhood. Hey, Jake. He looked uncomfortable. Listen, about poker night this Thursday. Let me guess. I'm not invited anymore. It's not that simple, man. Dom's really upset about this whole thing. He says you're spreading lies about him and Alicia. And you believe him? Tommy shifted in his seat. I don't know what to believe. But maybe it would be better if you took a break from the group, Until things cool down. I set down my coffee cup carefully. So you're choosing sides. I'm not choosing sides. I'm trying to keep the peace. By excluding me. Jake, come on. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I stood up and threw a 10 on the table. Don't worry, Tommy. I wouldn't want to make things uncomfortable for Dom. As I walked out, I heard him call my name, but I didn't turn around. The day got worse from there. At work, my secretary Linda looked at me like I was a wounded animal. My boss, Frank, called me into his office. Everything okay at home, Jake? Fine. Because if you need some time off, I said I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. I was angry and getting angrier by the hour. That evening, I drove past Alicia's sister's house and saw her BMW in the driveway. I thought about stopping, demanding answers. But what was the point? She'd already told me everything I needed to know. Instead, I drove to the Rusty Anchor, a dive bar on the outskirts of town where the drinks were cheap and the music was loud. I was on my second beer when I saw him. Dom, sitting at a table in the corner with two guys I didn't recognize. He saw me too. Our eyes met across the smoky room, and I could see the guilt written all over his face. He said something to his companions and stood up, walking over to my spot at the bar. Jake, we need to talk. No, we don't. Yes, we do. He grabbed my arm. This has gone far enough. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. Let go of me, Dom. Not until you listen to reason. The bartender, a grizzled ex-Marine named Sal, was watching us now. So were several other patrons. I said, let go. Jake, I swear to you, nothing happened between me and your wife. I don't know why she said what she said, but it's not true. Then explain the hotel receipts Susie found. His face went white. She told you about that? She tells me a lot of things these days. He released my arm and stepped back. It's not what you think. Then what is it? He was quiet for a long moment, glancing around the bar like he was looking for an escape route. I can't tell you, he said finally. Can't or won't. Jake, please, just drop this, for everyone's sake. Everyone's sake? I stood up, and I was pleased to see him take another step back. What about my sake, Dom? What about my marriage? What about my life? Your marriage was already in trouble. Everyone could see it. The words hit me like a physical blow. What did you say? Come on, man. You and Alicia have been growing apart for years. You work all the time, she's got her own life. It was bound to happen eventually. So you decided to help it along? I didn't do anything. But his voice was too loud, too defensive. The whole bar was watching us now. You're a liar, I said quietly, and you're a paranoid has-been who can't handle the fact that his wife doesn't love him anymore. The punch came from somewhere deep in my gut, 20 years of frustration and betrayal behind it. Dom saw it coming and tried to duck, but he was too slow. My fist connected with his jaw, and he went down hard, knocking over a table full of beer bottles. The bar erupted in shouts. Sal was already coming around the bar, and Dom's friends were on their feet, but I was already moving toward the door. This isn't over, Dom shouted from the floor, blood running from his split lip. You're right, I called back. It's just getting started. I made it to my truck before anyone could stop me, my knuckles throbbing, but my head clearer than it had been in days. Dom wanted a war? He was about to get one. The next morning, I woke up to find my truck's windshield smashed and my mailbox knocked over. A note was tucked under my front door. Back off, or it gets worse. I called the police, more for the paperwork than any hope of justice. Officer Martinez, no relation to Susie, despite the name, took my statement with the bored efficiency of someone who'd seen it all before. Any idea who might have done this? He asked. I have my suspicions. Want to share them? I thought about Dom's bloody lip, about the threat he'd made at the bar. Not yet. After the cop left, I called my insurance company and arranged for the windshield repair. Then I drove to work, where Frank was waiting for me with a grim expression. We need to talk, he said, ushering me into his office. Let me guess. Someone called you about last night? Dominic Russo's wife called this morning. She says you assaulted her husband. He grabbed me first. Jake, I don't care who started it. I can't have my employees getting into bar fights. It reflects poorly on the company. I sat back in my chair. Are you firing me? I'm putting you on administrative leave pending an investigation. 2 weeks paid. Use the time to get your personal life sorted out. So now I was unemployed, at least temporarily. I cleaned out my desk while my coworkers watched from their cubicles, whispering among themselves. On the way home, I stopped at the grocery store and ran into Janet Walsh, one of Alicia's yoga friends. She gave me a look that could have frozen lava. I hope you're proud of yourself, she said. Excuse me? Alicia told us what you did, sending those horrible messages, making wild accusations. That poor woman is beside herself. That poor woman is carrying another man's baby. Janet's face flushed red. That's a lie, and you know it. Alicia would never cheat on you. Then why did she tell me she was pregnant with Dom's baby? She was confused. She took one of those home pregnancy tests, and it came back inconclusive. She panicked and said something stupid. But instead of being supportive, you threw her out of the house. I stared at Janet for a long moment. She told you the test was inconclusive? Of course it was. Alicia's not even pregnant. She took another test the next day. Negative. But by then, you'd already destroyed her reputation with your paranoid fantasies. The grocery store suddenly felt too small, too bright. She's not pregnant? No, she's not pregnant. She's staying at her sister's house, crying her eyes out because her husband of 20 years thinks she's a cheater. I left my cart in the aisle and walked out to the parking lot, my mind reeling. If Alicia wasn't pregnant, then why had she sent that text? Why had she named Dom as the father of a baby that didn't exist? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at Riverside Park. Come alone. Ah. Alicia. Riverside Park was on the edge of town, a collection of picnic tables and walking trails along the Scioto River. I found her sitting on a bench overlooking the water, wearing jeans and a sweater, instead of her usual designer workout clothes. She looked older somehow, fragile. You came, she said without looking at me. Janet Walsh says you're not pregnant. I'm not. Then why did you tell me you were? She was quiet for a long time, watching a pair of ducks paddle across the river. Because I wanted to hurt you, she said finally. The honesty of it hit me like a slap. Why? Because you hurt me first. How? How did I hurt you? She turned to look at me then, and I could see the years of resentment in her eyes. By ignoring me. By taking me for granted. By treating me like a roommate instead of a wife. So you decided to destroy our marriage? I decided to get your attention. And it worked, didn't it? I sat down on the other end of the bench, keeping space between us. What about Dom? Is there something going on between you two? No. She shook her head. Dom's a friend, nothing more. I named him because I knew it would hurt you the most. Because he's my friend? Because you're jealous of him. I started to protest, but she held up her hand. You are, Jake. You always have been. He's younger, stronger, more handsome. He works with his hands, builds things, fixes things. You sit behind a desk all day, pushing papers around. That's not... It is true. I've seen the way you look at him at parties, the way you try to one-up him in conversations. You're threatened by him. The words stung because there was truth in them. Dom was everything I used to be. Confident, physical, unafraid of getting his hands dirty. Somewhere along the way, I'd become soft, comfortable, boring. So you decided to use that against me. I was angry, Jake. I'd been angry for months, years maybe. And that night after the Halloween party, I just snapped. What happened at the party? She looked away. You ignored me all night. I was wearing that costume, trying to get your attention, and you spent the whole time talking shop with the other husbands. Dom was the only one who complimented me, who made me feel attractive. So you decided to blow up our marriage because Dom said you looked nice? I decided to blow up our marriage because it was already dead, and you were too blind to see it. We sat in silence for a while, watching the river flow past. Finally, Alicia spoke again. I want to come home. No. Jake, we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through our problems. You sent me a text message telling me you were pregnant with another man's baby. You let me humiliate myself in front of the whole town. You destroyed my friendship with Dom, my relationship with our neighbors. Probably cost me my job. I know, and I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store. This was calculated cruelty. She started crying then, soft sobs that shook her shoulders. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to put my arm around her and tell her everything would be okay. But a bigger part of me was still angry. I'm filing for divorce, I said. Jake, please. It's over, Alicia. Whatever we had, whatever we were, it's finished. I stood up to leave, but she grabbed my hand. What about Dom? Are you going to tell people the truth? That he didn't do anything wrong? I looked down at her tear-stained face, at the woman I'd loved for 20 years, and felt nothing but contempt. No, I said, I'm not. But he's innocent. So was I. Word spread quickly that Alicia wasn't pregnant, but by then, the damage was done. The story had taken on a life of its own, growing and mutating with each telling. Some people said Dom had gotten her pregnant and forced her to have an abortion. Others claimed I'd made the whole thing up out of jealousy. The truth, that my wife had lied to hurt me, was somehow less believable than the alternatives. I was at the hardware store buying a new mailbox when I overheard two women talking in the next aisle. I heard she lost the baby, one said. Probably for the best, the other replied. Can you imagine the scandal if she'd actually had it? Still, Jake Morrison had no right to put their business on social media like that. I hadn't posted anything on social media, but apparently someone had screenshot my text messages and shared them online. The story was spreading beyond Millbrook now, picked up by gossip blogs and local news sites. When I got home, there was a car I didn't recognize in my driveway, a black sedan with the rental plates. The man sitting on my front porch was tall and thin, wearing an expensive suit. Mr. Morrison, I'm David Chen. I represent Mrs. Morrison in her divorce proceedings. She hired a lawyer already? She's concerned about protecting her interests, given the public nature of your dispute. I unlocked my front door and gestured for him to come in. What does she want? Half of everything, as per Ohio law. The house, your retirement accounts, spousal support. She can have it. Chen looked surprised. You're not going to contest the divorce? No point. But I have conditions. Such as? She signs a non-disclosure agreement. No interviews, no tell-all books, no social media posts about our marriage. She takes her half and disappears from my life completely. That's unusual. So is lying about being pregnant with your husband's best friend's baby. Chen made notes on his legal pad. I'll discuss it with my client. After he left, I sat in my empty house, thinking about the future. I was 40 years old, about to be divorced, temporarily unemployed, and persona non grata in my own hometown. Most people would see that as rock bottom, but I was just getting started. That evening, I drove to the Rusty Anchor again. Dom was there, as I'd expected, holding court at his usual table. His jaw was still swollen from our fight, and he was milking the sympathy for all it was worth. Jake Morrison's lost his mind, I heard him telling his audience, attacking innocent people, spreading lies about his own wife. I ordered a beer and sat at the bar, close enough to hear but far enough away to avoid another confrontation. The man's dangerous, Dom continued. Susan's scared to leave the house. We're thinking about getting a restraining order. One of his companions, a guy I recognized from the auto shop, nodded sympathetically. What kind of man accuses his best friend of something like that? A desperate one, Dom replied. His marriage has been falling apart for years. Instead of dealing with his problems, he decided to blame me. I finished my beer and left, but not before making sure Dom saw me. The look of fear that flashed across his face was worth the price of admission. The next morning, I was awakened by pounding on my door. This time, it was Susie, and she looked furious. What did you say to Dom last night? I didn't say anything to Dom last night. He came home scared out of his mind, saying you were stalking him. I had a beer at a public bar. That's not stalking. Jake, this has to stop. I know you're hurting, but you're destroying people's lives. People destroyed my life first. Alicia made a mistake. She admitted it, she apologized. Why can't you just accept that and move on? I looked at Susie's earnest face, at the woman who'd been collateral damage in my war with her husband. Because I don't believe it was a mistake. What do you mean? I think your husband and my wife have been planning this for months. I think they wanted to hurt both of us, and they succeeded. That's crazy, Jake. Dom would never, wouldn't he? Think about it, Susie. All those late nights, all those mysterious phone calls, the hotel receipt you found. You said yourself he's been acting strange. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking vulnerable. Even if that's true, even if they were involved, it's over now. Alicia's filing for divorce. Dom's promised to cut all contact with her. Can't we just put this behind us? No. Why not? Because they need to pay for what they did. Jake, listen to yourself. You sound like a crazy person. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe the stress of the last week had finally pushed me over the edge. But if that was true, I was taking Dom and Alicia with me. Tell your husband I'm not done with him yet. Jake, tell him. After Susie left, I made a phone call to a private investigator in Columbus, a guy I'd found online who specialized in adultery cases. His name was Rick Palmer, and his website promised discretion, professionalism, and results. I need you to dig into my wife's activities over the past 6 months, I told him. Phone records, credit card statements, hotel registrations, everything. That's going to be expensive. I don't care what it costs. And legally questionable, depending on how far you want me to go. I want you to go as far as necessary. There was a pause. Mr. Morrison, I have to ask, what are you planning to do with this information? I'm planning to destroy the people who destroyed me. Another pause. I'll need a retainer. $5,000. You'll have it tomorrow. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen, staring out the window at the house where I'd lived for 15 years. Soon it would belong to someone else, and I'd be starting over somewhere new. But before I left Millbrook, I was going to make sure everyone remembered Jake Morrison.